I'm in beautiful Maui, Hawaii. I had some yogurt with granola and just enjoying a beautiful day on Maui.
Lovely. Tell me if your morning starts very early indeed, because I know that you run a very successful restaurant business. Most people who surf, they get up in the morning to go surf, but perhaps you get up even sooner to maybe go check out the fish at the local fisherman's morning market.
Yeah, so basically, all depends, the time of the year. Usually during the winter time, I shift my focus a lot, especially in the mornings to the surf. If there's big waves, we're 100% focused from 2 days prior to swell. So it's completely different. And then if there's no big swells, I'm always checking out the waves, figuring out where I'm going to surf and what's going on with the weather and the surf in general. During the summertime, that's where I focus a lot more on the restaurants. I wake up, make sure everybody shows up to go to work, figure out what my day is going to entail, if it's either doing book work or purchasing products for the restaurant and communicating with my managers and my team. So it's a full-on schedule, and I try to find a balance between work and surfing. So pretty blessed.
Amazing. And then this morning, did you wake up early to maybe check out some small surf because it's still summer in Maui, or were you out working? As I'm sure your day as an entrepreneur begins early and ends late.
Yeah, no, this morning it started out super early. I was actually talking to my business partner and then trying to figure out what color we're going to paint one of our restaurants. And then started out,
Okay.
we're building a restaurant in Kauai. And then we're just trying to figure out the contractors, who is going to be doing most of the work. And then followed by a conversation with a head and a manager for a restaurant that I have in Bali. So it's a full-on schedule
Got it.
with the restaurants, and then every day changes, but usually starts around 6 a.m. pretty much every day.
Amazing. Great, great, great. Yuri, tell us, who are you and what do you do for those of us who don't know you?
My name is Yuri Soledade. I'm originally from Brazil. I'm 48 years old. Just a kid that had a dream to surf big waves. They got a chance to move to Hawaii and been following that dream ever since. I own 6 restaurants throughout, mostly in Hawaii. I have 3 restaurants on Maui, 2 on Oahu, and 1 in Bali. And then we're about to open the other one in Kauai. So pretty exciting.
You moved from Hawaii and you have made a home base in Hawaii, and now you are spreading overseas as well. Sounds like there's been a mission of sorts beyond just surfing some of the largest waves on this planet. But taking a step back, like you said, you grew up in Brazil, far from the massive waves of Maui. How did your journey into surfing begin? And yeah, what led you to this path to chasing big waves?
When I first started surfing, my older brother, he was already surfing for quite some time, and he took me surfing pretty much, since the first time. But in Brazil, it's all beach breaks, so there's no channel for you to get from when you first paddle out. You have to go through these waves to actually get to the lineup. And right at first few sessions, I was super skinny, small kid, and I could not make it outside. And my brother was like pretty much like yelling at me. It was like, "Come on, you can do it." And then and somehow, sometimes I'll be paddling out, and then right before I get to the outside, especially because I was super skinny and small, I had to bail my board and then go under the waves. And then sometimes those waves would push me all the way back again. And I kept trying. And my brother would be surfing outside. And then he would come in and be like, "Man, why didn't you make it out?" And then, and every time the waves were big, it would be even worse. So from pretty much around that time, I promised myself that I was going to be able to surf bigger waves. And then as I started surfing and get more comfortable, that became a passion and a dream. And I didn't know what big waves were in Brazil. We don't have many big days, especially where I come from, that part of Brazil in Bahia. And until I had the opportunity to come to Hawaii, and then when I got here, it was love at first sight. The adrenaline, the desire to push myself and to be calm under like really extreme tough situations, and to actually that thrill to actually ride a big wave and accomplish in the end without wiping out was something that I still love to this day. And I made a goal. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna push myself on the biggest waves possible. And luckily I've been fortunate enough to be able to achieve that dream and be very successful at it.
Successful you have been indeed, Yuri. Tell me this though, did you come from a family of surfers? So your brother surfed. He helped introduce you to surfing. Did you grow up on the coast yourself? Like, how difficult was it for you to be able to follow your fascination with surfing in those early years?
It was a little bit challenging just because my parents didn't surf. I had an uncle that surfed, and then he actually moved when I was fairly young to Hawaii, actually, and that was one of the reasons why I I wanted to come to Hawaii, because I had this idol, my uncle. But for my family back in Brazil, that was very traditional. It was the opposite. They hated surfing. My mom, for many years, was totally against it. At one point, when she realized that I was in love with surfing, she told me that I could not be a surfer, that I wouldn't have any friends, that there was no way that she was gonna allow me to become a surfer, especially because back in the day, in Brazil, they always thought about surfers being bums, people that did not want to work, that was involved in drugs and things like that. And then I think I didn't know at that time, but I actually feel like because her brother, somebody that she deeply cared about, left Brazil, moved to Hawaii in search of the perfect waves, not so much of the big waves, but just the perfect waves in general, and never went back. And I think that probably traumatized her. And she made it even more difficult for me to be a surfer. So I had to like fight super hard just to be able to surf. And then at one point, she promised I promised her that I would be basically the best student at my whole entire school, that I would only get A's, that I wouldn't have any friends that were surfers, just to keep being able to keep surfing. And I lived up to that promise for many years. I always been super focused. I was always the best in my whole entire school. I when I was 17, I entered in Brazil. It's very challenging for you to go to university. I was basically qualified top 5 in 3 different universities: chemistry engineer, civil engineer, and business. And then right after high school, I was 17. I won a surf contest back in Brazil, that I used that ticket to come to Hawaii. I was supposed to be here only for a month, and I've been here for 30 years.
Yuri, I'm still visualizing that early season when you were trying to follow your brother to paddle out. I learned to surf out here at Ocean Beach in San Francisco. Also, a beach break, without channels. So you kind of have to really fight yourself. And maybe I was a bit older as an adult trying to learn, and I was a little bit timid as well. I did not grow up by the ocean. And I just know that the paddle out was like the hardest and the scariest thing, because because here you were a wetsuit and you just keep getting pounded by the set,
Yes.
especially like spring surf and short swells and whatnot. So in my mind, as I continued surfing, I was almost trying to avoid those big heavy paddle outs, even if the
Mm-hmm.
waves were better, because I just got tired. But you, on the other hand, you wanted, it sounds like you wanted more of that. Like your brother would pull you into the outside waves, and it was harder for you. You were like throwing your board away. You were doing all kinds of things to get out. But somewhere in your mind, you were like, I just want to surf bigger and bigger waves. So I'm trying to get a sense of like, what was it about the ocean that was so compelling to you as a young kid that it it created this desire to be out there surfing the biggest waves out, the waves bigger than the ones that were in front of your beach break in Bahia. How old were you, by the way, when you were first starting to go out to surf?
I was about 9 years old, 9 to 10. And like you said, I think it was something unique and special because even my friends at that time, they were actually the opposite. Like when they were getting pounded, they would give up. And for me, because of the challenge, because of the desire to achieve my limits or to suppress my limits, I really wanted to push myself and keep going. And I would get pounded, sometimes get washed all the way to the beach, and I'll be like looking at the waves, and then most people wouldn't give up right then, and I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna do whatever it takes, and this time I'm gonna make it outside. And then I kept pushing myself, and then once you achieve that goal, the thrill and the mindset that you get from that of surpassing your limits, it's something that you can't can replicate. So and then since then, I love that feeling, and then kept pushing myself. And like I said, back in Brazil, what I thought like it was big waves, like probably at 10, 12, 15 foot faces. When I came to Hawaii, I realized what it was big waves, 50, 60, 80, 100 foot waves. So it's a big difference from when I was growing up, but I took one step at a time. Luckily, I had friends that were able to, that had the same feeling, the same desire as me, and we kept pushing each other. And then at one point, we were probably the guys that are really trying to surf this wave over in Maui that is called Peahi or Jaws. And for many years, for about almost 10 years, we're the only ones in the world doing that. And then I think, of course, we started out on the smaller days, and we kept passing, and we realized that it was possible, that it was doable, that we didn't die. And we kept doing it again and again and again. And until the whole world realized that it was possible and it was doable. And now Peahi became the proving grounds of big wave surfing. There's two places in the world: Portugal, Nazaré, and Jaws. Mavericks is also another place that it's incredible. The waves are unbelievable, but has a channel versus Nazaré and Jaws. Even though Jaws there is a channel, but most likely you're gonna get caught. So for you to be sitting outside and waiting for a wave, you really want it. You want to do this because otherwise it's so intimidating that you're not gonna get out there.
Thanks for drawing that thread because I can see now that connection between, let's say, the will and tenacity you had as a young boy, where you were getting pounded by the inside sets, but you just wanted more. And now you have succeeded and you've won some of the biggest awards in big wave surfing in Maui. And I can see how you have taken that tenacity and you have built upon it layer by layer. And then the other thing that you talked about with your academics and how you wanted to not let your mom down. We'll touch on that also with your career. But sticking with your journey for a second, you followed a family person to come to Maui. Sounds like there was some innate desire to discover the waves that Maui had to offer. And you came from a time in Brazil where surfing was seen as somewhat of a renegade sport. How old are you, Yuri?
48.
Okay, 40. So let's say, odd 38 years ago, Brazilian surfers now dominate the world of surfing, right? You guys are absolutely at the epicenter. from all sides. But I'm guessing like 4 decades ago, surfing was not quite as popular a sport, which is probably similar to how surfing was in California also, which was again, fringe people doing drugs and doing all of those illicit activities. Was part of going to Maui also their desire to be accepted as a surfer and make your mark as a mainstream athlete, because those opportunities were not available in Bahia and in Brazil back in the day?
My story was a little bit different, right? I When I first started, I come from a town in south of Bahia called Olivença, and it was pretty much a fishing village, very small. And at that time, when I started surfing, there was not that many people that were surfing, even though we had a great athlete that later on he actually made to the world tour. His name was Jojo Jolivenza. He became very successful, and then which created a pathway for me. But as a young age, around 13, 14, because of that desire and the passion for surfing, I already started having success of my own. So I started being like, like my city champion, and then I went to state. I became a state champion, and then I had sponsors. I had support. I was already like being on the media, competing nationally. Around 14, 15, I actually left my family and then moved to the capital of my state, which is Salvador, which mainly to follow my dream to be a surfer, but also to pursue a better career on my studies because I had better schools and things like that. So from 14, I left my family, got adopted by this other family that took me in. They basically helped me a lot. They put me on the best school of the state. I was the only surfer on the whole entire school, and it was funny because there was a moment when it was really hard to get into that school. You had to make a test, and the test would take like 5 6 hours. And then when I went to make the test, because this family, they were very smart. They used to live in the United States. They spoke like 7 8 different languages, and they just took me in. They had a son around the same age, and I became friends with their son, and they basically took me in. And
Wow.
but they wanted me to go to a good school, and it was super hard to get in because you had to make a test, and then you're competing with a couple hundred kids for maybe like 5 or 10 spots. So, anyways, but that particular day, I had a surfing contest, and it was like the state finals, and I basically only had like a couple hours to do the test, while most people would do it in 5 6 hours. So I went in, did the test, probably under 2 hours, and gave back. And even the professor at the time, he was like, "What do you mean you finished? You sure?" I'm like, "I'm sure." And then I told him, I said, "Look, I don't know if I'm 100% on the test, but it should be about 98%." And he looked at me and he laughed, and he was like, "Oh, this kid is insane. He's crazy." And so I left, ended up going to the competition, ended up winning the competition, became a state champion. A couple of days later, they called me from the school, and then they were telling the family at the time that I somehow had cheated on the test. That I must have like access to a copy because nobody would be able to do the test in 2 hours, and it would have had aced it. Basically, I got 100% on that test. And they're like, "Look, people usually take 5 6 hours to do the test, and they'll barely get 80%. And how this kid comes, and he got to tell us how he cheated, what did he do?" And then like it was a big deal, and the family was like, "No, you don't understand this kid. Like I know him. He's a good kid, and I'm sure he didn't cheat it. I don't know how he got 100%. He's a smart kid, but I have no idea how he done it." But and then they kept like pressing me, and I was like, "Look, I did the test. Like, give me another test. I'll do it in front of you guys right now if you wanted to." And then finally they realized that I ended up doing the test, and they were so impressed. They ended up giving me like a full scholarship I was the only surfer at that time. They really wanted to change the way the whole state would look at them, and surfing, it was about to get a little more media stream, and luckily I made a good connection with that school, and then I still keep in talk with them until this day. So it was a good story, but I gotta be thankful to my mom that since 9, 10 years old, she put the pressure on me, and she had me like reading books. I would be like the only one going to compete at like 10, 11 years old, like going to the heats for surfing. I would surf a heat, and then for like 15, 20 minutes, I'll come in and I'll be reading books. And then like all the other kids were looking at me like, oh, you're not going to play? You're not going to do this? I was like, no, I have to read the books, and I have to be the best at my school. Otherwise, I won't be here. And I really want to be here competing and surfing. But, like I said, I got to thank my mom for it. And I won't be here if wasn't for her.
That sounds incredible. You were taken to this new town. Actually, you found your way to this new town so you could pursue your dream of surfing in the bigger leagues. So you could be out there and get noticed and take part in competitions. At the same time, you're managing this dual identity as, let's say, a hardcore academic, like as a good student. And sounds like both those worlds lived in ignorance of each other. When you were at school, people didn't know that, here you are moonlighting as this young surfing wannabe. And when you were out there sharing the waves, people didn't realize that you also had this academic path ahead of you. I'm just guessing that you were just really hardworking and tenacious. You had this clear North Star, which ultimately led you to Hawaii. Tell us about the first maybe couple of years as you arrived on the island. You found amazing waves. Did you already know the language? How did you make a home for yourself so that you gradually started? The reason I ask is, in some ways, I identify, being an immigrant, right? My first few years coming to the US for grad school were kind of difficult. I'm trying to acclimate myself to so many things, the culture, the foreignness of the land, the studies, trying to also work part time as I went through grad school. It was a pretty heady cocktail. Like, how did you navigate all of that? And at what point did you start realizing, wait a second, you know what? I am now finally on firm ground, and I am on the path where I can be surfing the biggest waves. At the same time, I also have made some firm inroads into building a career as an entrepreneur.
We had to stop in LA before we got to Maui. So by the time I got here, I had only $50 in my pocket. And when I got here, I realized that $50 wasn't going to take me very far. And then eventually I needed to get myself a job. I was just doing odds and ends, like cleaning yard or doing some work here and just making some cash, like $20 here, $30 there, until I got myself my first job at this restaurant as a dishwasher. And then seeing what my parents done since a young age, and what they, how much care they put it into everything that they did, I used the same, principles, and started working as a dishwasher. And within like a couple weeks, the owners realized that I had something special, and they moved me pretty quickly. And then I went from a dishwasher to a prep cook to a manager. And within 5 years, I became an owner of this restaurant. And since then, now we own, 6 restaurants. I have over 350 employees, and then at that time, I realized that in order for me, that I wasn't gonna be able to have the successful surfing career as a professional athlete competing, like going places, doing the regular route. And then also big wave surfing, it was a very small. There was nobody really making money on big wave surfing. And I made a decision that I was gonna work hard, be successful, have enough of my own money to support my dream and to be able to jump on a plane and chase the big waves all over the world by being paid by my own personal finances. So, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to be successful at the restaurant. And then the restaurant is going to help pay for my dream of surfing big waves. And then they helped pay it off. And, to this day, I still chase the big waves. If there's a huge swell somewhere, usually I jump on a plane and I will chase it with some friends. Most of the friends that I have that are a little bit older at my age, they all stopped, but I still want to do it. And then I want to do it for as long as I can. I'm hoping that I'm 60 years old and still chasing those big waves.
Incredible journey. There were so many people believing in
Yes.
yourself,
Yes.
even from your family, your mom who didn't understand maybe all of the facets that surfing presents. She somehow found belief in you to be able to allow you to spread your wings, to the family in Bahia, to other people who help support your dreams. And it really takes a village, right? Like
Yes.
one sees you paddling into a 70-foot wave with jaws. And behind your talent and conviction, like there has been an army of support. Yuri, your surfing career is inextricably linked to the wave of jaws. I wanted to ask you a couple of things about it. So the first is, to somebody who's not as familiar with big wave surfing, please help us understand first what makes Jaws so special.
Jaws is a surfing spot on the north side of the island of Maui. It's a unique place because Hawaii is sitting on the middle of the Pacific, where there's the biggest storms in the world, and then we always get these swells. They are massive, but not all the breaks has all the dynamics to be able to create a perfect wave. And Jaws, Teahi, it's that place. There's a canyon that channels all the energy from the swells that travel miles underground of energy that converges into this spot, which hits this reef and then helps amplify the waves, and then creates this perfect A-frame where there's a right and a left that it breaks over a very shallow reef that allows the wave to break and create a barrel. And the wave is so intense and so powerful and so big and so beautiful that it's considered to be the best wave in the world. And luckily it's sitting right here in my backyard. When I moved to Maui, Jaws was just starting it out to be considered that type of wave. There was not a lot of guys. There was only a handful of guys like Laird Hamilton, Dave Kalama, Derek Dorner. They had like a group called Strut Team that they basically were the ones that invented the toe surfing, which is in order for you to ride these giant waves, it's really hard for you to be in position and paddle with your own power. So these guys realized that that it was a lot easier for them to ride these giant waves being towed. They started out actually with a Zodiac, and that was the first time somebody ever got towed into a real wave. It was with the Zodiac. Later on, they realized the jet skis. It was a lot easier. Was able to maneuver quickly and put you on the right spot. And also,
Sorry, what's a Zodiac?
Zodiac, it's a an inflatable boat that has like an engine on it. So
Ah,
so it's a very small boat, and then that's what they had it at the time because jet ski back in the early 90s, late 80s, it was like there was no really jet skis back then, and it was very expensive first they used that small boat, the inflatable boat with a motor on it, to actually tow it into a wave right outside of Sunset Beach on the north shore of Oahu. And then quickly they realized that with the jet skis were going to be the way to go. And then on some of them there were windsurfers, and then they already had the technique down of being able to surf with straps on their boards, where they're a lot more locked in into their board. And then they're like, oh, instead of like surfing with the regular boards where we're able to move our feet, but because we're going over bumps and the speed's much higher, why not put straps where we're connected to our surfboards? And they did that, and that's why they were called strap team. And that's how they invented um, the toe surfing. And then for me, I just had moved from Brazil. Like those guys are my idols, right? Like I'll look at them, and then they'll come to eat at a restaurant, or I'll see them at the beach, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Larry Hamilton, it's Dave Kalama, it's Mark Angulo. Like all these guys, they're like legends of our sport because they were the ones that created. And at that time, like my goal was to actually be like them. But unfortunately, I didn't have the means to give, because, for me, like nowadays, to put it in perspective, it's like if somebody would say, oh, you're going to own an airplane. And then that was, the financial means that I had back in the day for me to own a jet ski. Like I barely had a car. I barely had money to eat, and, let alone buy a jet ski. And then it would be like the same thing now if somebody tells me, "Oh, you're gonna buy an airplane." So, anyways, I looked up to them, and then my goal was to actually surf those waves, but like it didn't even cross my mind that I could use the jet ski, because I was like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to own a jet ski. So let's try and paddle to those big waves, and let's push myself. Of course, I didn't think that we were gonna be surfing 50, 60, 70, 80 foot waves, but I thought, oh, maybe I could one day maybe reach to like 30 foot, 40 foot faces, and that was gonna be my goal. And then we kept going, and I had two friends that also were living here on Maui at the time, and then we had the same goals and desires to push ourselves and to surf those waves, and then we not going out there, and then some of the local guys on Maui started joining us. There was several people that actually bought into the idea, especially at Jaws, because Jaws, it's a wave that it comes with such a force and such intensity, and it breaks so fast that that's where people thought that it would be hard. Not so much for the size of the wave, but the intensity of the wave. And at that time, while we're still just going, and a lot of times we almost died. We almost drowned, and it was very challenging. The equipment that we had back in the day was very poor. Like the boards wouldn't turn and wouldn't go straight. We had no inflatable vests. The leash, which is the cord that attaches the surfer to the surfboards, were very weak and very small. So it was challenging, and plus that wave, it's on a cliff. You gotta hike down this like cliff with your board that had no even way for you to get down. Nowadays, like people cut in like a way, and then it's super easy for you to get down. But back in the day, you were like almost dying just climbing down the cliff, because there was just like a straight cliff. And then and then when you get to the bottom, there's like huge boulders, like all rocks. And then a couple times we got hurt or we broke our board before we even make it out to the inside, just to be able to jump off the rocks and cross the shore break. Sometimes we would get pounded and break the fin or break something. We would have to turn around and go back up, climb the cliff, and go home. And for many days we would be going, and either be like myself with Marcio, or myself with Danilo. So basically, those two guys, their names were Danilo Couto and Marcio Freire. Unfortunately, Marcio, he passed away surfing on Nazaré, which is the other, probably the biggest wave in the world in Portugal. And he passed away about a year and a half ago. He was a childhood friend. Comes Those two guys, they actually come from the same town, and we used to compete against each other when we were kids. When I moved to Hawaii, and got here, and then somewhat, started like pushing myself, surfing bigger waves. They realized back in Brazil that that's what they wanted to do, and then so basically they gave up everything in Brazil and moved over here. Danilo came first. He 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 came from a family that had a little more means, so he ended up going to school. He wanted to start it out doing the community college on Maui, go do the University of Hawaii on Oahu, and then Marcio came even a couple years later. We grew up together. We always competed against each other, and then when we got to Maui, we decided that we were gonna face those waves together, and we were gonna push each other. And then so they gave us a nickname for us called Mad Dogs because they thought we were crazy, that we were gonna like kill ourselves, and then some of the local guys and the local surfers over here, they start calling us Mad Dogs, and then every time we would go somewhere, they're like, "Oh, you Mad Dog." So stuck around, and until this day, they all know us by the Mad Dogs.
Thanks for that history lesson over there. You actually preempted another question I had about the origins of the term Mad Dogs. Let me understand this a little bit better. Laird and Dave Kalama and all are well known in the world of surf for having, let's say, pioneered toe surfing.
Yes.
And they were they started toe surfing Jaws. Were you and your two brothers, Mad Dog brothers, were you guys trying to be the first people to paddle surf Jaws?
Actually, that's the thing. There was already been people that done it before. Like we're not the first ones. There was a group of guys, even before Laird guys. They paddled throughout. The process of us doing for that many years. There was other guys that came in that did it, but I think the biggest difference from us and some of the guys that did it before, it was that they done it once, maybe twice, maybe three times, and they stopped. They never really had the desire and the energy and the idea of do it slowly but surely, right? So our goal, and then we actually talked about it before we actually did it. It wasn't like something that we were like, oh, let's just go surf today and let's like surf these huge waves. It was something that it was built from a lot of thought or a lot of perspective, and then we were like, okay, we love big wave surfing. We moved all the way from Brazil to here to actually pursue those waves, and then we done it. Marvex, we done Waimea, we done Sunset, we done the outer reefs on Maui, and then eventually came to the point that it was Jaws next, and we figured out that we should have done it on the smaller days, and we're gonna focus on the left, and then test that out, and then actually me and Danilo, not Marcio. Marcio has never been a tow guy. He never really did it. And then unfortunately, he passed away doing towing, which is so ironic. But anyway, so me and Danilo, we actually had towed Jaws with some friends and people that took us over there before we actually paddled. And by Marcio, no, Marcio was a strictly paddling guy. And then but we decided that we were gonna do it, and at first we were like, okay, let's focus on the left, because all three of us were goofy foot, which goofy is somebody that rides with your right foot forward, right? So I'm actually, as I'm going left, I'm actually facing the wave, which is a lot easier if you're facing the wave, because you can see what's going on. You have a lot more awareness of like control your body and where you're going, versus backside, which is your back against the wave, and then you can't really have like a full view on what's going on. So anyway, so we decided to focus a lot on the last, and we decided that we were gonna do it on big days, but not the giant days. And then we did that. We accomplished that. And then we're like, okay, we did it at, let's say, 20 to 30-foot faces. And then we're like, okay, let's do it on a 40-foot face day. And then we actually, studied the buoys and the weather patterns. We knew what the swells were going to be like. And then we still have buoys around the Hawaiian Islands where we can track to see how big the waves are going to be. So we kind of already knew what we were getting ourselves into it, even though like a lot of people think we were just crazy guys that were just going for it. But no, there was a lot of, thought process behind the whole thing. And we kept going on bigger and bigger days until the point where, we actually surfed the giant days. And luckily, Danilo actually ended up winning a big award which is this event, XXL, that awards the guy that surfs either the biggest waves or the best ride of the whole entire year. And Danilo actually ended up winning the award, surfing a right at Jaws, and he won like $100,000. Can't remember exactly how much he won, but it was a big award, and that's why we're able to succeed and create a career, because it was a process of pretty much like still going, but it was like 20 years in the making. So it wasn't something like it was from like one day to the next, and it wasn't like a one-time thing. It was something that it took years in the making.
Yes, and I hope that point is not lost on listeners, that all of this took years and years of diligent, thoughtful, dedicated persuasion. You
Yes.
guys started on smaller days and you gradually worked up. I'm curious, those days when you were out there, just you maybe and your two friends, what those days where somehow maybe you underestimated the wave size and you caught yourself in situations where you thought maybe you pushed the envelope too much? Maybe you can describe maybe one or two events or incidents where you were overwhelmed because the studying the weather patterns and the buoys and all the charts, it gives us information to, let's say, 80%. But then the ocean and the swells and all the hundreds of factors, they can conspire to bring us situations which are sometimes way beyond one has prepared for.
Yeah, there's definitely a few moments that, looking back, I think that were insane. And if I had to do it again, I probably wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't recommend anybody. There was one particular day that I had my board. I had a friend with me. We were just sitting, and I could see the swell was building, and the conditions were like amazing. There was no wind. The swell was it started out being like probably like a 20, 30-foot face waves. And then it was going to be 40, 50. And I drove down to the cliff thinking that it was going to be other people or maybe some tow teams out there. And then when I got there was nobody, and then I parked the car and looking at my friend that doesn't surf, doesn't know anything. He was actually visiting from Brazil, didn't know anything what he was getting himself into it. And then I got there, and then somehow my mind shifted. You're looking at these perfect waves. I got my board in the car. There's nobody out there. And then I'm like, man, I need to get out there. I was so positive, and I'm still a very positive guy. And I have a lot of faith that, your destiny is written somewhere, and then whatever happens is just a matter of, something that it was written long time ago. And that day, I didn't even think nothing was going to happen to me. And I just grabbed my board and I told my friend, I said, look, I'm going to go get down to this cliff. I'm going to jump these rocks. I'm going to paddle out. I'm going to catch a few waves. If something happens to me, you go in and call for help. But calling for help, that means that you're dead, basically, right? So there's no calling for help. Like Piahi, like Jaws sits like on the edge of a cliff on a very like sketchy dirt road that takes you half an hour just to get from the dirt road to the main road, and then you have to drive all the way to the next beach over. It's called Hokipa, to actually connect with a lifeguard or maybe call a helicopter or whatever. And that day I just went for it, climbed down the cliff, jumped off the rocks on my own without any safety gear, and then over there caught a couple waves. On my third wave I got a gnarly wipe out. I almost drowned, and then the waves pushed me in. I still had my board. Luckily my leash never broke, and I was like, you know what, maybe this is enough, and paddle back in, like climb off the rocks again, climb up the cliff, and then went home. And luckily I made it home, but I could have easily died that day. And I know there was another day that it was just me, Danilo, and Marcio that we had gnarly wipeouts. We had no jet skis, nothing. There's another day that Marcio and Danilo were there by themselves, and then that day was actually caught on camera, and those guys got annihilated by the waves, and Danilo
Mm.
almost died. So there's so many days that looking back, we're like, my gosh, we're really out of our minds. Like it's insane what we did back in the day, and especially because we didn't know, like there was no really like
Mm.
like nobody never done it before that way. Nowadays there's few days that I go over there and then I see guys like Albi Layer. There's some guys that actually get out there on their own, or they're paddling out, but at least they had us to show them the ropes. They know where to go in. They know what corners is easier for you to get in and out. They know what type of wave. The
Yeah.
boards are have improved so much. Nowadays everybody has like inflatable vest that allows you to come back up a lot faster. So it's just a different time. But back in the day, it was hard. And I think the only reason why we did it is because we all had faith. Somehow we come from a very religious town in Brazil, like Bahia, and somehow we believe that our destiny is written somewhere. And unfortunately, Marcio's destiny was to pass away surfing, and he passed away in Nazareth, and to this day, he's my hero, my legend, my everything. And I love that guy. That guy taught me so much about uh, you know be a better person, be happy, enjoy the moment. The most heroic way to go. If I had to choose my fate, I would much rather die the way he did.
You certainly had conviction. And in the world of climbing, there's this concept called first ascents. There could be a route or a cliff or a mountain that goes challenge for eternity without seeing an ascent. And there's a parallel with big waves. And your perseverance, conviction, desire, courage, and maybe a little bit of luck allowed you to make that mark and succeed with some of the biggest waves at Jaws. Just sticking to the subject of being out in the ocean when some of these gigantic waves, the size of large buildings, size skyscrapers almost, are breaking, you, Yuri, have one or at least been nominated for some of the biggest wipeout awards. Can you tell us what are those awards about? And can you tell us what is going through your mind and your body as you're about to wipe out on a wave which is as large as a giant building?
Talking about wipeouts, it's always a very challenging and difficult issue because you never know when really gonna happen, right? So to me, like I always tell, because I do a lot of coaching, and I always tell people that are trying to get into big wave surfing, it's not a matter of how, it's about when, because it's about to happen. Like you're never gonna be a big wave surfer without a wipeout. It's gonna happen, and you gotta be prepared for it. So even though you gotta have faith that you're gonna succeed on every single wave, and that's always me my mantra, right? Like I approach every single drop or every single wave or every single session as if I'm gonna get out there, succeed on my mission to surf those waves and come home to my family. But there's a lot of times where things are not going to go as planned and you're going to wipe out. And that's why you have to be prepared. You have to train really hard. Like to this day, I trained at least 4 times a week, and you have to surf all the time. You have to be able to control your heart rate. And when you do wipe out, most likely you're going to be underwater for a long time. And not necessarily you're going to have to take one wave. Sometimes you can take up to 5 waves, 10 waves. There's times where I was out there that I didn't have any jet skis or anybody around, that I took 20 waves on my head. It took me like 30 minutes to get out of the situation, just completely without any ounce of energy in my body, but I had to survive. So again, you gotta be prepared for the unknown. And that's what big wave surfing is, because you never know what's gonna happen. Uh, you know, and yeah, wipeouts are very dramatically because you don't expect. Like sometimes when you're riding a wave and then you're taking a drop and then you hit a chop or you hit somewhere, the boat stops and you fall forward, and that massive wave, it's about to land on you. Or sometimes, even after that wave, and then you were there in water, but it's not really water because there's so much foam that sometimes like the foam is above your head. So you try to grasp for air, there's nothing there. It's just water. It's even worse because you're swallowing water, swallowing foam, because your body is at the surface of the water, but on top of that, you might have like 3, 4 foot, 5 foot of just foam from the impact of the wave prior. So, you gotta be able to survive those moments if you want to be a big wave surfer. And that's why there's only a handful of guys that really are ready to push the limits. Nowadays there's probably like 1,000 of us that are surfing those waves, but there's only like a very small amount of guys that are actually really wanted that 100-foot wave when that wave comes. Yeah, wipeout is never easy. It's almost being like on a car crash. I just recently was involved in a car crash, and then to me it felt like it was a wipeout at Jaws. uh, and it's hard to describe, but that's the best description that I can give you. It's being on a car crash when you're not expecting. But it's part of the game. It's something that I actually enjoy it. Like once in a while when I'm on a good road, that I go out and then I don't get a wipe out, and I come home and I'm like, man, I never got a wipe out. I was happy that I never got a wipe out and I didn't put my body in danger. But and then I kept thinking, oh, did I really test myself? what's going to happen the next one. And so sometimes you get one out of the way and then you almost like feel better that you got it over with, and you're ready to have the ride of your life. So, like I said, it's something that you don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen.
I can imagine. I have had my share of wipeouts. I mean, I am a pretty average surfer. I'm mostly wiping out. I I vibe out a lot. I'm always getting crunched by the waves. But the idea of wiping out on a wave that is that humongous and still having the, I don't know, the courage to go out and try and catch the next one, I think it requires another level of desire and I think skill set. Marcio's passing was a huge loss to the surf world and a particularly bad blow to you and others who were close to him.
Yes.
I am curious, is it now starting to maybe shift your approach with big waves, the way you look at risk and the decisions you make?
Um, that's a good question. Actually, quite a few people had asked me that, including my wife, people that are close to me. But in reality, to me at least, it didn't change a bit. Like we know the risks involved by surfing big waves. Marcio was a guy that I think more than anybody, he knew what is he was getting himself into it. Even the day of his passing, which, like I said, is very ironic because he had paddle surfed on the morning successfully, and he had caught some waves, and then swell was picking up, and then he was done for the day. And some of our friends, this guy Lucas Chumbo, that it's pretty much nowadays, along with Kaileni, is probably one of the best two big wave surfers in the world, invited him to go towing in the afternoon as the swell was picking up. But Marcio had never been a tow guy. He only done it, a handful of times. He was in Portugal. He was in Nazaré, where it's mostly towing. It's very hard to successfully ride waves paddling over there just because of the way that the beach is. It's a beach break, and the way the wave breaks doesn't have no channels. It breaks kind of like all over the place, everywhere. And he decided that he was going to go towing. And unfortunately, I think because he was comfortable in a way, he didn't use inflatable vest. And unfortunately, it was the decision that he made. And I don't really know what happened. Sometimes you get knocked out. Sometimes you think you have enough air, and then as you coming up, the second wave breaks on top of you, and then it pushes you deeper underwater, or you black out. There's a lot of stories of shallow water blackout. As you're coming up, you think you have enough air, and then right before you get to the surface, you end up blacking out. So I don't know. Could have been, people said that, oh, could have been a heart attack, or whatever. There's so many things that could happen at that day. But to me, the biggest mistake, it was not being prepared, and it was not having the inflatable vest, especially nowadays that we're getting older, that we don't have the same energy. We need to be smart about the decisions that we make. And I think that day,
Sure,
unfortunately, by not wearing a vest, um, unfortunate that happened. So it was
sure,
like Danilo, he was one of the founders of Bragg. It's a institution that spreads awareness and techniques to save people around the ocean. And thanks to Danilo, Bragg is a major institution in the whole world right now. And like I was telling Danilo, we still gotta do this. No matter what we do in life, we gotta carry Marcel's belief and saying that we gotta make a difference. And somehow, until we die, we're gonna try to do that somehow, one way or the other.
Marcio seems like an extraordinary soul indeed. Thanks for sharing the thing that you said about preparation. That makes complete sense. Like, you are able to look at maybe some of the critical mistakes that were made,
Mm-hmm.
and that's perhaps what allows you and others to learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Mars you sacrifice. So the rest of us don't make those mistakes and be extra aware and prepared, because again, the ocean spares no one, and one needs to do everything in our control to be ready for conditions that go right and sometimes can go disastrously wrong, can go very
Exactly.
wrong.
Yeah, and we and another thing too is like we got to be aware of our limits, right? Like everybody has a limit, no matter how good you are. It can be Kylini, it can be Lucas Jumbo. Not
Hmm.
every day you're gonna be feeling 100%. Not every day you're gonna be, you know, feeling ready to tackle those waves. And some days you gotta understand that if you're not ready, if you're feeling ill, or and I always tell my wife and I tell all my close friends that the day that I'm afraid of surfing big waves, I'll stop. I I have a lot of respect. I know what I getting myself into, but I have to be able to control my fear, right? And I gotta know my conditioning. I gotta be aware of what I can handle. And I think that day, Marshall, just by surfed for many hours before paddling, which takes tremendously amount of energy, was at the end of the day. He was doing towing, which, like I said, wasn't like something that he was an expert on it. And then sometimes, I don't know, by like wanted to be with your peers, or or the desire to go and do it, but without being prepared, you have to really think about twice. Like you got to know your limits, and that's what I see with big wave surfing, and that's where sometimes I'm not even afraid for people that are just starting out on the sport, that they want to like go above and beyond their limits. It's okay to push, but you got to be prepared. Like me, I've been surfing my whole life. Marshall, Danilo, Billy Kemper, Kaileni, all those guys. We besides training super hard day in and day out, we know what we're getting ourselves into. It. And sometimes I see guys that are just because they're able to go and buy an inflatable suit, or have those amazing surfboards, or even to have a jet ski, they're going way above what they're capable of. And to me, it was like what we said on the beginning of the podcast, which is like, even though people thought we were crazy surfing the big waves, but took us many days and many years to actually being able to push ourselves, to that like breaking point, or to the limit of like surfing like a 50-foot wave.
The lessons from Marcio's legacy and his event will hopefully make the ocean a safer place, if nothing else. The other thing you spoke of was about how, unfortunately, these days, because equipment and jet skis and vests have become more accessible
Mm-hmm.
to the everyday person, in some ways that has actually not reduced the risk but has actually made it higher. It's funny, I was speaking with Gary Linden recently,
Mm-hmm.
and he was talking about the same thing, where in the past the consequences were so high
Mm-hmm.
that people were really well prepared, but nowadays unfortunately things are different now, but that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
But just staying with some of these things here, wanted to talk just for a second about this amazing career that you have built.
Hmm.
It's funny, over this weekend I was talking to my partner while coming back from a rock climbing trip, and she has spent some time in Maui. And when I mentioned that I was going to speak with you and that you operate the Piahi fish market, her eyes lit up and she got she got really excited because she was telling me like how much she has enjoyed getting sandwiches
Hmm.
and how she's had the best, the simplest, but the freshest and the tastiest lunch at Piahi fish market. How do you manage to balance these aspects of your life, Yuri? So this is something that, in fact, a listener, Fred Pompermere, who's been on this podcast, he wanted to ask, which is, you have been performing at the highest levels with big wave surf, which requires just, incredible preparation. But you've also managed to start from the ground up and succeed at being an entrepreneur in the food and restaurant industry, one of the most difficult industries with the highest failure rates. And now you continue expanding. So I'm sure it's not the easiest to boil it down into, one or two sentences, but what has been some of your secrets that we can learn from Yuri and being able to juggle all these things?
So it's a good question. There's two answers to that question, right? The first one is on a personal level, which is to me, I think you have to stay in the moment. And I have such a different lives being an entrepreneur and also as a surfer, or even as a father, or even as a friend. That for me, I think the secret is to be focused 100% on the moment, right? Whenever I'm at
Mhm.
work, I'm at work. I don't get distracted. I'm there for a reason, and my job is to make sure, we're serving the best meal possible. That I'm taking care of my over 300 employees, and we're the best experience that either because there's three restaurants now. It's Paia Fish Market, Nuka Sushi is a sushi bar in Haiku on the north side of Maui. And then now with the new operation, which is Ulu Fish Market in Uluwatu, Bali. So, anyways, to me, it's all about being present and focus 100%. So whenever I'm with at work, I'm at work. Whenever I'm surfing, I'm surfing. I'm 100% there. I'm 100% committed, no matter if the wave is 1 foot or it's 100 foot. Whenever I with my family, I'm giving my sole attention to them, and I try not to get distracted by all the things that is around me. It's either it could be even work or the desire to be surfing when I'm at work or whatever it may be, and I think that's been the secret. It's to be present. And then answering the other part of the question is that I was very lucky to be in the situation that I was when I first started out at the Paia Fish Market. The guy, because I didn't create the fish market, right? It was a guy. His name was Warren Roberts. He created, along with my business partners right now, especially Moonstar Green, that they created something so unique on the way we do things. And then, of course, I brought in on the whole idea of treat the restaurant as a family and make sure that all my employees somehow they're part of the outcome if we do bad or good. Like we work with goals. Like every time everybody reaches a certain goal, we give them a daily bonus. If they reach a second goal, there's a second bonus. If we break the record or if we achieve a third goal, there's even a third bonus. We give them as much as I can because I truly believe we're just as good as I have the people working for me, and then every, like, I got the opportunity to become part owner of the original one, right? So every time I open another location, we always give the opportunity for some of the guys that been on the trenches that work really hard, they understand the business, or they have something special to become part owners as well. So that way, they're constantly giving their 100%. And me and my business partner, we kind of oversee it and bring the culture, the knowledge to be able to succeed. And nowadays, our restaurants, every single one of them, there's a line out the door from the moment we open to the moment we close. Like the Bali one, we just opened 4 months ago, and it's already like pretty much the biggest success case in Bali. Uh, it's like a line out the door. People, even though we already had a history in Hawaii, but to actually change to a different country, to adapt the concept, and to find the ingredients, to keep the freshness, like you said, getting the fresh fish. We had to really try and control the quality of the fish from the moment that is getting caught on the boat all the way to my door. And that's always been the secret, something that my parents instigated me way back in the day. When I first took over the fish market, I was just a young kid coming from Brazil. When I first arrived here, I could not speak one word of English. And within 5 years, 6 years, I already owned the restaurant. So for me, it was very challenging, but I had to create a way where people believed in me. Not only my partners, which I knew that they knew that I had something, special and unique, but also I had to make every single one of my employees believe in me. And a lot of them, they've been working for a lot longer at the restaurant. They're from America. They had a lot more knowledge. And then here comes this kid. And then I said, everybody had a meeting. And I was like, you know what, guys? From now on, things are going to change. You guys buy me to my idea, we're going to be extremely successful. I believe on the concept. I believe on the restaurant, even though we're not doing well right now, but we're going to do well. And then, and that day, I ended up giving a raise to everybody. And my partners thought I was crazy. And then she's like, oh my gosh, we're barely making any money. We're barely breaking even. And you're already giving a raise to everyone. And I was like, no, that's how it's going to be because, with fresh fish, fish is so expensive that you're never going to make by selling very little. You're only going to make by selling at a super high volume. And where we're going to make the money, it's on the drinks, on the beer, on the soda, on the French fries. For actually the piece of fish that we serve, a lot of times I'm actually paying for the customer to eat a fish burger because it costs so much. But because, there's a line out the door, we're able to fish cooks super fast, right? And then we're able to pump it out so much throughout the whole entire day that where I'm making the money, it's on the extra things, and that was something that I believed. I already knew it from the numbers. I believed on providing the best product available. My parents always told me, like, look, if you're gonna sell fresh fish, which they did it at that time back in Brazil when I was young, my father would go to the market and would be talking to the fishermen and would be like, look, we only sell fresh fish. I'm gonna take care of you, and then you give me the best fish available. Like every time when the fish comes in, you separate the best fish because I want to be competing against 10 other beach shacks along the beach, but I want to be known by being the best, the freshest fish available. And that was something that I did here. So I went right when I bought the restaurant. I went to the distributors, to the fishermen. I brought them a case of beer, and I was like, "Look, guys, from now on, I'm just like another guy. Luckily, I got the opportunity to become a owner of this restaurant, but I need you guys' help. Like, I'm not gonna succeed, and I'm not gonna be able to buy it from you unless you help me out. Most of the restaurants, they're selling, chicken, meat. They have so many other items. I only sell fresh fish. So I need to be the best quality on the whole entire island. So you help me out, I'll help you out. I'll make sure that I'll take care of you. I'll give you some gifts. I'll bring you a case of beer. I bring you some shirts or whatever. But I need your help because otherwise I'm not gonna succeed. I have two kids at home, young kids. My wife was actually pregnant when I of the second kid because I already had a kid. She already had a kid from before, and I knew that it was going to be my only chance. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes for this restaurant to succeed. I'm going to do whatever I can on my power, and there's no other way around. This thing is going to succeed. It comes back to that faith that we talked about it, where like somehow I still believe that I was putting on this world, on this earth, to actually surf and push the big waves and show people that it was possible. Same thing with the Russian. I really believe that I was put in to actually start over there as a dishwasher to change that restaurant around and to give people an opportunity and to help people succeed. And I wanted to succeed not only for myself, but for my family and for all the people that depend on me. And there was no way that I was allowed that to fail. I was going to do whatever it took to succeed. And luckily it did. And nowadays, we have an extremely successful restaurant. Everybody knows about the fish market or sushi bar. I just took Marcus from Surfline yesterday to a dinner there. And then I was telling him, I was like, look, every day there's like a 2 hours. Today, there's a 2.5 hour wait. And people go from all over the island to go to Nuka and wait 2.5 hours to eat there because the quality is there. And that's
Wow.
always been the secret.
You just provided us, Yuri, a masterclass in entrepreneurship. I'm not sure if this has happened yet, but I feel like, one of the Ivy League MBA schools
Mhm.
need to have you over to teach people about the importance of the fundamentals. And it seems like, yes, you took that foundation that your family drilled in you about the freshness of your product, the quality, and maybe just as importantly, building that alliance with your network of
Sup-
employees,
Suppliers, employees.
suppliers.
Yeah.
Yeah, just up and down. Because, and I think you also created maybe this unified incentive system
Hmm.
where,
Exactly.
where as you succeeded, they succeeded.
Hmm.
So they had, let's say, yeah, just as much skin in the game
Hmm.
in helping this vision come to
Yeah.
life. One thing you said earlier, I wanted to ask you for a brief second, which was around mindfulness. Something you shared is so important in these times that we live in, where we are constantly trying to juggle multiple things.
Hmm.
And I feel we don't do justice to any one of them because we are distracted.
Hmm.
Your ability to focus and be present, where did that quality come from, Yuri?
So hard to say, but I go back to the beginning. I think when I had the passion for surfing, when my parents didn't agree with surfing, they like you don't even believe, but the day I started surfing, right? Like I would go to the beach and then I finally got a surfboard. There used to be like a very old surfboard. It was supposed to be a four fin, but there was only one fin. And I'll like wake up super early before school and I'll go surfing without my parents really know because I already knew where they stand on surfing. And so, anyways, and one day so happened that my parents decided they were going to walk the beach for their own health reasons. They're going to walk. And then they're walking at the beach and they see me surfing. And my mom and my dad, they look at me, they're like, what's going on? Is this kid surfing? My dad actually swam to the lineup. It was a day with very small waves. And when I realized he was next to me, almost ready to like spank me. And so I started like hammering away. I basically took a wave in, left my board at the beach, ran. I used to live on a hill, and then ran home, and my mom. And like I said, well, I was a 9-year-old kid, and I came home and I locked myself in the bathroom. And my mom came home and she was like, "Please come out. I need to talk to you." And then she's like, "You're not surfing. Forget about it." And then I was talking through the door and he's like, "No, but I love surfing. Like I don't know. I just love it so much. I really want to do it." She's like, "No, you're not gonna be surfing. Surfing is for losers. I love you, but you're not gonna be a surfer." So it took me like 3 hours locked in the bathroom to try and convince her that I was gonna be able to be a surfer, but I wasn't gonna be a loser. That I was gonna be able to be who I was meant to be without getting involved with drugs, without losing the focus on schooling. And then finally she said, "You know what? Open the door." And I even threatened her to go live with my dad because she was divorced from my dad. She divorced him and then married somebody else when I was like months old. So I said, "Look, I'm gonna go live with my dad. If you don't let me surfing, I'm gonna go live with my dad." And I think that's when it triggered something in her to say, "You know what? Let's make a deal. I'll let you surf. You cannot surf during the week. You can only surf Saturday and Sunday. You have to be the best student, not only of your class, but your whole entire school. And you cannot have any friends that are surfers. You cannot even not even one friend that is surfer." At 9 years
Oh
old,
my God.
at 9 years old, I said, "Okay, deal. Shake my hand, look in my eye, and promise me that you allow me to serve." And I said, "Okay." And then I think at that point, I, I promised to myself, and I was like, "You know what? The only way for me to actually be able to do this, if it's I use my time management, and if I focus on the tasks that I have in front of me, because I'm never going to be able to surf all weekend, or even be this surfer guy during the week, or if I'm at school, not being focused, thinking about waves or thinking about other things. Because nowadays there's so many distractions. Back in the day, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have social media, we didn't have any of that. The information was very limited. So I promised myself, and I think I was able to carry on since that point. My whole entire life, I was able to focus, and every day I wake up, I have some goals that I have to accomplish throughout my whole day, and that's what I go and do it. Sometimes people, they feel like they can't get through me because either I'm super busy or because I'm focused so much in one thing that I have a hard time multitasking in so many ways. But for me, it has allowed me to focus on that moment, accomplish that goal, and move into another goal, accomplish that goal, and so on. So throughout my day, there's so many things that I got to do as a father of three, a husband, business owner with restaurants. Like you said, it's one of the highest failure business in the world. And then being a surfer, having to be able to train hard and still to be in shape at my age. So whenever the waves come, I'm not prepared for the task ahead. So again, I like I said, I've been very blessed, but it also takes a lot of effort and a lot of commitment to get those things done every day.
Amazing, Yuri. And incredible to think that your success today, to me, it seems, goes all the way back to those early years and your burning desire to be able to surf
Yes.
and the lessons that it taught you in focus, in resilience, in planning, in people management.
Mhm.
All of it goes back. We are running to the end of our time here. Let me ask you this. So, You have been blessed with so many things that have allowed you to succeed. What has been the greatest gift, Yuri, that you have received? And the greatest gift perhaps you have given to somebody else?
Wow. I think the greatest gift that I was given, it was the ability to live in Hawaii. I think, especially me coming from a small town in the middle of Brazil, and to think, if you ask that young Yuri back in the days at 9, 10, 11 years old, that I was going to be living in here and to be able to have this lifestyle and to have affected so many lives along the way, I don't think on my wildest dream I'll think that will be possible. So like I said, there was so many things that had to happen from winning that contest back in Brazil that gave me the ticket. That it was like, that's another podcast in itself, just to tell you how I won that contest. And to win that ticket, to have that friend of mine that instigated the idea, that gave me the original $500 to make it over here, from that guard, that Marine guy that allowed me to get into the embassy, from the consul that gave me the visa, to the family, to the people that helped me, to the people that helped me even buy into the restaurant, to my business partners, to my wife, to my kids. Like my son is the one that it has rescued me so many times, because he's one of the best jet ski operators in the world. And then he grew up seeing at Jaws, and over the years, especially as we get older, there were so many wipeouts and so many moments that I needed his help, and then he's the first guy there to save me. And so again, I think that gift to be able to be here today, it's incredible, but it takes I have so many people to thank for it that it's incredible. And probably the biggest gift that I have been giving people, I think, is the inspiration. Like if they can see uh, a young kid from a very humble beginning to be where I am today with, a lot of hard work. Because again, I don't think I was the most talented guy. I just put in a lot of effort and a lot of hard work into the things that I believed on. And and nowadays, to see even with the restaurant, to see how many people had bought houses and make a living, and be able to fulfill their dreams or send their kids to college, and knowing that they're the most well-paid employees on the whole state of Hawaii on the restaurant business, it's something that I'm very proud of. And another thing too that I always tell everybody, because people always think that things just happens, right? And then to me, there's a saying on jiu-jitsu that it's a black belt, it's a white belt that never gave up, right? And then me, I'm a
Mm.
dishwasher that never gave up. Like if you look on the Guinness Book and then go over there, who did the most dishes in the world? My name is probably one of those guys, because through the 6 years, even nowadays, I have a multi-million-dollar business. Still, if somebody doesn't show up to one of my restaurants, I'm the one going there and
Mm.
doing dishes. Even though, hopefully I'm not going to be doing many more days like that, but I'll do whatever it takes. I'm not afraid to go over there. Like they see me going and sweeping the floor, or if somebody doesn't show up, or if somebody is going through some hard times, I'll be the first one to say, no, you go home and I'm going to stay. I'll do your job. And because I had the opportunity to learn all the different jobs on my business, I can do it all. So to me, the inspiration goes back to where you've got to believe it in yourself, you've got to trust yourself, but also you've got to do whatever it takes in order to succeed. And I think, like people always tell me that I inspire them. Hopefully I can, maybe somehow with my story help some kid that it's somewhere that is trying to to accomplish some goals, or if I'm gonna help somebody that it's wants to work on the restaurant business, that wants own like a restaurant one day, and and or a restaurant, it's like that. There's people that have barely started, and but I see that they have what it takes. They'll be able to be the next part owner of a restaurant, because nowadays that's what it's all about. I don't need to open more restaurants, because I'm already busy as it is, and I make a decent um living doing it. I'm a very simple guy. I don't need much. But the thrill of opening new restaurants and giving people an opportunity, that's what it pushes me. I hope I can keep inspiring people. I hope I can keep helping people. And, like I said, and part of that, keeping the legacy with Marshall alive too, smiling every day, being happy, don't take things for granted, appreciate, everything around me and my surroundings, my environment, the ocean, and everything that it makes this great life that we're having.
You received many chances and you made the most of them, including the one which opened your doors to coming to the US and to Maui. And now you have, or you are in the process of continuing to repay that in spades by empowering people who are in your business, around your business. You have accomplished so much for a simple boy who just wanted to surf. I am curious now, are there still any big goals you have from your life?
I mean, like definitely, I don't think like so many as like goals that I dreamed of, because I think I accomplished everything that I set myself up as a young boy. But I still would like to keep pushing the barriers. I still like to be surfing Jaws, Peahi for as long as I can. Like I've been very involved into coaching and giving back to the sport that gave me so much. Like I coached Skylane for many years. I coached um, this kid Young Gentile that made it into the world tour since like pretty much his first day. And then I hope to keep mentoring a lot of surfers that they can actually make a difference and be a good influence on people's future, because I know I can only reach so much. But maybe if I get a young kid or somebody that I can share my knowledge, maybe they will be able to pass it on and share it to even more people. And that's what happened with Ian. That's what happened with Kailani and so many others. So I think my goal is to keep sharing what I learned over the years, so we can pass it on to even more people. I'm hoping that I can be surfing until I'm like 100 years old. Uh, and
With the advancements we have these days with technology and your desire, I mean, yeah, there's no reason why you, others, even myself, can't be out there playing in the outdoors.
Mhm, exactly, right. Yeah. So again, I'm very blessed and I'm very happy to live this life.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless.